Do we want to get into center field?
Let's get into center field.
Do you want to start since I started left?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll do that. All right. I'll start out the top 10 center fielders just with an immediate hot take, just coming scorching out immediately. My number 10 center fielder, I have Jackson Chorio. He has not played a major league game yet, but I'm still putting him here because he is one of the most unique prospects in all of baseball. Um, he's pretty much a guaranteed shot to make the opening day roster for the Brewers because they've already extended him. And I think he's going to be, I think he has a very similar type of play style to Corbin Carroll, who we just mentioned as the number one left fielder, pretty clearly. He's going into his age 20 season. So already very young. He had a 490 slugging percentage throughout 1,200 plate appearances in the minors across 3 seasons and 4 different levels. Actually, more than 4 different levels. But I really believe in this guy. Fangraphs has him listed as a 70 grade raw power and a 70 grade speed, as well as a 45 grade hit tool, and 55 grade fielding tool. Baseball America has spoken extremely highly on him throughout various articles they've written about him over the years, and I'm ready to see what he does because he's pretty much getting a full season this year. He doesn't have to worry about playing for a contract. He's just going out there and playing his game and trying to get the Brewers to the playoffs. So I am putting Jackson Chorio as my number 10.
Yeah, that is definitely a hot take for sure.
Hmm.
And yeah, I wasn't really even considering him.
That's
Not that
fair.
I'm gonna place him in the top 10 now, but I just like with whatever projections I was looking at, he just wasn't
Hmm.
lifted, so I don't think I was considering him. But definitely a guy like, yeah, like he's been a highly touted prospect since he was 18. He's just, there's obviously a lot of potential there. So placing him top 10 positionally isn't the craziest thing in the world. Like it's not like you're saying he's top three already. So like, and Corbin
Yeah.
Carroll is a guy who went from uh playing 30 games in the MLB to being the highest ranked left fielder this year. So seeing a turnaround like this, or just a skyrocketing through the rankings,
Yeah.
is
I
not
mean, this I could be I
crazy out
could
of
be
question.
I could be underrating him by putting him at 10.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. With my number 10, I'm staying in the NL Central, and I'm talking about one of the most interesting players out there,
Hmm.
Jack Sawinski. Uh,
Oh,
he he's very, very interesting to me because just a breakdown of what he did last year. He had 224 with a 793 OPS, 115 OPS plus. He had 3 outs above average in center field, -10 defensive runs saved in center field. So that's why we're talking about the weird inconsistencies with defensive metrics. Sawinski also had 13 stolen bases and 5.0 BSR. Sawinski is also very young. He's heading into his age 25 season with the Pirates. And why I say he's one of the more interesting guys in baseball is he has great as well as awful qualities. He has a
yep.
nine, he has a 94th percentile barrel rate, a 96th percentile chase rate, and a 94th percentile walk rate. However, his strikeout rate is fifth percentile and his whiff rate is 22nd percentile. So with all those great qualities and awful qualities, I think it nets out to an overall positive. I think that 115 OPS plus is pretty representative of what he can bring to the table offensively. And just that, whatever that middle ground of outs above average and defensive runs saved is what he can bring on defense. And he's just an overall positive on the bases as well. So I think just an overall positive, overall good player out there. And that's why I'm giving him the top 10 recognition. Who is your number nine?
Sure. My number 9 is a guy that's coming off of a pretty good rookie year in LA. I'm going with James Outman. He did outperform his expected numbers by quite a lot, but he's still, I think, is very good at a lot of things. He had an 86th percentile walk rate as a rookie, which is not a very common thing to see. It's normal to see guys kind of come up to the show and kind of swing at everything and try to make the most of every pitch and every opportunity. And Outman was a lot more patient with it in his rookie year. He did strike out quite a lot and whiff quite a lot as well. But weirdly enough, he had a 73rd percentile chase rate, which is like kind of weird. But anyway, 89th percentile sweet spot rate at 38.2%. Very good out defense, both on Baseball Savant and on Fangraphs. He actually had 9 outs above average this year and 6 defensive runs above average, a 5.7 BSR on Fangraphs, and also a an 89th or 93rd percentile base runner. The offense is certainly the biggest question mark for him. But he did put up a 118 weighted runs created plus last year, and I believe that he can cut that strikeout rate down from 31.9% and kind of have it balance a little more out. I think that's a lot of the reason why his expected numbers were so bad was because of that walk rate or that strikeout rate. But I think he's already got some of the more difficult things down with the defense and base running. Not that anything's more difficult, but in terms of statistics, it's hard to get those both up with offense. And I think the offense has the most room for improvement, but he's already got that stuff down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I think the defense in BSR is more unpredictable, but he has those on his side right now. The offense, it's easy to see where he can make improvements, and I think he has the potential to make those next year.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Outman showed a great amount of potential, and he was kind of a meme at the beginning of the year because we were like, oh, how, you know, he didn't outperform Soto, but he kind of came close. He was like sort of in the same ballpark of productivity. But my number 9 is a guy I think a lot of people would be negative on, and I would definitely understand why they would be negative on him. And I can't imagine he's on your list, but uh, it's Cedric Mullins. I can't escape him. I just can't escape Cedric Mullins. But yeah, he's coming off a 2023 and a 2022 where he kind of underperformed. This past year, he had 233 with a 721 OPS, a 101 OPS plus. He had 6 outs above average, but a -2 arm value. He had 7 defensive runs saved, 19 stolen bases, a 3.3 BSR. And with Mullins, he is heading into his age 29 season. I think the reason why I place him top 10 is because I'm very optimistic about what his numbers were before he got injured last year. If you're unaware, he had a groin injury. He injured his groin on a swing, and pretty much after that, his performance, even when he came back from the injured list, his performance just got a lot worse, especially on the base running side. I think he only had like 4 stolen bases after his injury, whereas he was on a very, very good pace prior to that. So I'm optimistic about that. At the time of that injury, he had a 356 on base percentage, an 835 OPS, and he was on pace for 24 home runs and 39 stolen bases. That injury slowed him down, and I think he could be better in 2024 if that groin is working properly again. I think he's potential to be on track to be a top 10 center fielder in the game again, because that's not what he showed after the injury. I'm definitely aware of that, but I think if he gets back to what he was before that injury, he is definitely a top 10 center fielder. Who do you have as number 8?
My number 8, I have a guy that I might be still latching onto some hope for, and it's Byron Buxton. Admittedly, this pick might be a little more me going off of what he did before rather than what I think he's going to do going forward, but I just don't want to give up on him. I mean, he still hit the ball very well in the 300 plate appearances he had last year. A 90 percentile barrel rate, 91.5 miles per hour in exit velocity, a 45% hard hit rate, also a 10.1% walk rate, which was the highest of his career. It's actually up 5 points from 2021, which was kind of his peak season. Byron Buxton has been an awesome player when he's been on the field since 2020. Unfortunately, he hasn't really been on the field. That's been the issue. He's never had more than how many plate appearances in a season? Like probably like 350-ish. 382. It's the most he's had in a season since 2020. In this era where he's been very good. And last year was, definitely a much worse year offensively than we've seen from him in the past. But I just, I don't want to give up on him yet. I still feel like that potential is in there somewhere. He's only going into his age 30 season. And I feel like it's still somewhere deep down inside there that we could see the real Byron Buxton for a full season.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at his 2021 numbers. It was like It would have been one of the greatest seasons of all time if he like
Yep,
stretched over 160 games.
yep.
He played 61 games, had a 1005 OPS. Uh, I think
He was your number one hit for that season.
yeah, it was my number one hit for that season despite playing 61 games. He had 9 stolen bases pre rule changes, and um he also had, excuse me, um 7 outs above average in 61 games. So
Yeah.
he could have had like 15 outs above average, a 1000 OPS, and like 20 stolen bases in 2021 if you stretch that over a full sample. So obviously there's a lot with his potential. Kind of a weird year last year where he didn't play the field at all. He was exclusively a DH, so I don't really know what his status as a center fielder is, but the Twins or the Fangraphs obviously has him as the projected center fielder. My number 8 is a guy I've been talking a lot of mess about, but still, he's top 10, but I think some people would have him ranked higher than I have him ranked. But I'm talking about Cody Bellinger, who had, his very good bounce back year, or what appeared to be a very good bounce back year last year. Hit 307 with an 881 OPS, a 133 OPS plus. He had 4 outs above average in center field, but -3 defensive runs saved in center field. He had 20 stolen bases, 2.7 BSR, and Bellinger's heading into his age 28 season. With Bellinger, why I don't have him ranked higher is I'm not confident in the carryover from last year. He had a 39-point difference in batting average and expected batting average, a 91-point difference in slugging and expected slugging, and he had a 309 average on non-hard hit ground balls, which the league average on non-hard hit ground balls is 178. And maybe he definitely made some improvements in his game, made a lot more contact last year, but guys don't make careers off of guys who have Bellinger's speed don't make careers off of hitting non-hard hit ground balls for the hole. That's just not what happens. That's not how you sustain success. So I think those numbers are going to go down, which is why I have him number 8. But overall, still, I expect, slightly above average offense with good defense and good base running, which is why I have him ranked above guys like Sawinski and Mullins. So, yeah, overall, I think he'll be good, but not great. Where he was probably you could consider last year a great year. Where do you have or what do you have for your number 7?
Yeah, these lists already look a lot different than there's a lot more discrepancy than the left field ones. So this is interesting. But I have Jung-Hoo Lee at my number 7, a recent signee for the San Francisco Giants, and it is a hot take. He hasn't played in major. He's the second guy on my list that hasn't played a single game in Major League Baseball yet. Um, but I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about and how he'll do in a Giants uniform. He's only 25, so there's reason to believe that his best years could still be ahead of him in Major League Baseball. And he maxed out at a 175 weighted runs created plus in the KBO last year. His down year at only 139. And he has incredible bat to ball skills. Over the last 5 seasons, his highest strikeout rate is 7.6%, and his lowest walk rate is 7.1%. Over the last 4 years, his lowest walk rate is 9.6%. So he's been a very good hitter. He's been very good with power. He's been very good with average. He hit 23 home runs, which is a lot for the KBO at just age 23. And I know that, his home run ball might not play as well in San Francisco, but I think he'll find a way to make do. And I do have him at number 7. I know it might be another hot take for me, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah, yeah, it is always weird to evaluate guys who have never played in the MLB, whether that be, Jackson Corio or Jung-Hoo Lee. But, the Giants gave him $113 million for a reason, and they obviously see some potential there. My number 7 is going to be James Outman, your number 9 pick. I think just his overall defensive game and base running ability last year, like I'm very, very optimistic about that. Like that's something that's, very hard to do. But he looks like a tremendous athlete. Overall last year, he had 248 with a 790 OPS. He had a 112 OPS plus, 9 outs above average, one defensive run saved, 16 stolen bases, and a 5.7 BSR. I think he was taking a lot of extra bases on people's hits and whatnot. But yeah, I'm very optimistic about what he can bring to the table defensively and on the bases, as well as be an above average hitter. So I think he ranks. That might surprise people. I'm not sure. I don't think it surprises you. I think you see that potential as well. But he's just overall like a whole package guy.
Hmm. So we're going on to my number 6 now. This is where I put Cody Bellinger. You had him at number 8, and I know you've shown a lot of concern with him, and I get it. I understand why. I think he had better numbers than a lot of the guys that I put above him on this list, kind of for that reason. When you have a 38% sweet spot rate over 424 batted balls, you're going to outperform your expected numbers. That's just what it is. And you have a little bit more control over your sweet spot rate than you do over your batting average, expected batting average, slug x slug, whatever. And if Cody Bellinger can keep himself in like the 35 to 38% range in sweet spot percentage, I think he'll outperform whatever expected numbers he has again in his next uniform. He did a lot of things very well last year. Outside of hitting, he had 5 outs above average. He had I know that his Fangraphs defense wasn't as good, but they both agreed on his base running. He had 2.7 BSR. He had 75th percentile sprint speed, 87th percentile base running run value last year. And he also cut his strikeout rate by 12%. He went from 27.3% to 15.6% between 2022 to 23. So, do I think he'll post that kind of season again? Probably not, but I do still think he's a top 6 center fielder. I put him above all of those guys that I listed previously, and all the guys that you have also previously listed. Spoiler alert.
Right. I find the take of the sweet spot rate signifying that he will outperform his expected numbers, because I feel like if you're hitting it in the sweet spot,
so I don't think he'll outperform them to that degree again. But I think you're going to have very good numbers with a 38% sweet spot rate. I think is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that he'll have a 40-point difference in expected batting average again. But I don't know, it could be 20, 10, 15 points.
But I think that's implying that when you hit it in the sweet spot zone, that it doesn't matter, like the expected numbers when you hit it in the sweet spot zone are higher, because guys get better results when they're hitting it in the sweet spot zone, which is why I think the expected numbers would be up when you hit it in the sweet spot zone. So I don't know. I think the reason
I think if he continues to hit at that high of a sweet spot rate, I'm not gonna be too alarmed at a lesser difference between his expected numbers and his regular numbers. Yeah, obviously, like I said, I'm not saying he's gonna have 40 points over in batting average, 90 points over in slugging, whenever it was. Like, that is an extreme. And like I mentioned, he had better numbers than some of the guys that I'm putting above him on this list. But I don't think, I think if he continues to hit in the sweet spot that much, then he'll continue to get very good results and maybe better than whatever his expected numbers are going to be.
Right. I just think it's not an implication that that he has higher actual numbers than his expected numbers because he hits it in the sweet spot rate so much. I think the reason why he had higher numbers than his expected numbers was because of his luck on ground balls, not necessarily because of how much he was hitting it in the sweet spot zone. But
no, I get it. I understand what you're trying to say.
Nonetheless, we're not really that far off on him. I have him 8, you have him 6.
Yeah.
My number 6, speaking of expected numbers, I think he's an exception when it comes to expected numbers. I don't even know if you're going to have this guy on your list at all. But my number 6 is TJ Friedl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I do not have him on my list. I'll say that right now.
So yeah, he it is hypocritical of me for sure to criticize Cody Bellinger.
Cody Bellinger, but be like TJ Friedel's the guy.
But looking at, if you just watch the video, if you just watch the games, but no, if you just watch the video of TJ Friedel's lucky hits, he seems to have some sort of strategy going with it. He seems to hit it to where, soft spots in the infield
He hit it where
defense.
they ain't.
He also bunts a lot, which like Cody Bellinger was not necessarily doing. So there seems to be some strategy in his soft contact wherever it may be. I think there's more strategy in what Friedel is doing than what Bellinger was doing. And then along with that, Friedel has very good defense and very good base running. He had so overall last year he had 279 with an 819 OPS, a 118 OPS plus. I'm not sure that's going to sustain itself, but he had a four outs above average in center field, +2 arm value, 0 defensive runs saved, which is not the best, but 27 stolen bases and a 9.1 BSR and 66% extra base taken rate. So he's a real threat on the bases. He's heading into his age 28 season. And like I said, he has a very unique hitting style where I don't necessarily look at the expected numbers with Friedel, because the fact that he can hit over 300 on ground balls is more of a result of strategically placing it in a good spot, with the bunts or with the softly hit ground balls. He seems to have just more strategy. It's not necessarily just happening to get through holes. Do I expect him to get repeat on a 118 OPS plus? No, I don't. But I think he'll still be an average to above average hitter, maybe a guy with like a 105 to 110 OPS plus, while being a very positive contributor on the bases as well as defensively. So that's why I have him ranked above the good Cody Bellinger and James Outman and Cedric Mullins and Jack Sawinski, as well as Jackson Coria, who I don't have on my list here. But yeah, like I think he's shown ability to consistently outperform those expected numbers, which is why I don't necessarily look at them as much.
Mm-hmm. So now going into our top 5, this is kind of where the list became a little more straightforward for me. But at number 5, I have Michael Harris II, who struggled for a large portion of last season and looked like he was kind of going through a sophomore slump, but he ended strong at an 891 OPS from June 14th on and found his way to a 4-win season with, very good defense and base running and a little bit of, like I said, a little bit of a down year on offense, but I think I can kind of be forgiven because of that. He is one of the best base runners and one of the best defenders in all of baseball. There's nothing that he struggles with when it comes to any of that. He has 86th percentile sprint speed. He has 92nd percentile outs above average, 93rd percentile arm value, 89th percentile arm strength. Then going back to Fangraphs, 7.7 defensive runs above average, 3.9 BSR. So, I mean, all of it comes down to hitting. And his hitting is a little weird because he has one of the lowest walk rates in the league. He had a 4.6% walk rate in 2023, also a 4.8% walk rate in 2022. He also chases a lot despite not striking out a lot or whiffing a lot. But he had a 304 expected batting average. You look at him on Fangraphs and think, okay, 334 BABIP, 366 BABIP from June 14th on. But, when you have that good of an expected batting average, that can be a little bit forgiven. 490 expected slugging, and also an average exit velocity of 91, hard hit rate of 48.5%, barrel rate of 10%. There's a lot of things that he does extraordinarily well. So I put Michael Harris II at my number 5 spot.
Yeah. He's definitely had some interesting time in the major leagues for sure. This is where things get a little bit squirrely for me, maybe a little bit controversial, but I have Mike Trout number 5. And this isn't me to say that he's going to be worse than the guys ahead of him on a game per game basis, but as far as total 2024 production, obviously he hasn't shown, just trailing back to why I have him ranked below some of these guys is he hasn't had a full season since 2019. You could even argue 2018. So I'm not sure if I can rely on him playing, more than 100 games. So that's why I'm going to have some of these guys ranked ahead of him. And, on a game per game basis, I think he's better than guys like probably Luis Robert and Michael Harris, but I just trust them to have a full season more than I do Mike Trout. Just over on the overall outlook with Mike Trout, last year hit 263 with an 857 OPS, 131 OPS plus. He had 4 outs above average, 1 defensive run saved, 2 stolen bases, and a 1.8 BSR. He's also heading into his age 32 season. I think if he's healthy, if I can rely on him to play, 130 games, I think he's definitely top 3 in this list for me. But it's just like, if I'm projecting for 2024, I have to play health into a factor for sure. So that's why I have him. That's why I have him number 5. But I think on a game per game basis, he's still one of the best players in the game. I think those offensive numbers are going to jump back up for him. I think he'll have an OPS plus maybe around 150, but I don't think just overall he's going to play that much. And if he does, then I hope he does. If he does, then definitely shame on me for this pick. But I have him number 5.
At number 4, this is where I put Luis Robert Jr., which is, I mean, I think had the best season of his career. In the last year, he played 145 games. It was his first time playing more than 100 games in a season, and he put up a 128 weighted runs created plus with very good defense and good base running on Fangraphs. His base running run value is actually a lot different on Baseball Savant, which was interesting. But he was actually a fantastic defender, according to outs above average. He had 12 outs above average and a 95th percentile fielding run value. So, a top defender and also just one of the most fun guys to watch hit in all of baseball, right? I mean, he hits the ball very. Interestingly enough, his exit velocity is not very good, but he had a 15% barrel rate, a 515 expected slugging, and again, just like Cody Bellinger, a 38% sweet spot rate. Um, and he did very well last year. An 857 OPS, and like I mentioned, excellent defense. Certainly a couple things to improve on, most notably contact. And he's a guy that I mean, he's in the big 3 as far as chase rate, whiff rate, and strikeout rate. He's 15th percentile or worse in all 3 of them. Not to mention a 5% walk rate isn't very good. There's a lot of things to improve on. A 315 OBP is not the most ideal outcome, but he does have a couple of other good things going for him, which is why I didn't put him in it's kind of the thing that kept him out of the top 3, but also the things that kept him in the top 5. Um, I really like the pluses that Luis Robert has. He's kind of like a player of extremes, like you mentioned earlier, with Jack Sawinski. But yeah, I did put Luis Robert at 4.
Yeah, I also have Luis Robert at number 4. Yeah, last year for reference hit 268 with an 857 OPS, 128 OPS plus, 12 outs above average, 6 defensive runs saved, 20 stolen bases, and a 2.0 BSR. He's heading into his age 26 season. Last year was kind of like his first really full healthy season, it seemed like. And we saw the potential, and showed that he's a very good player. I think he had a 5-win season on Fangraphs. So hopefully that health maintains for him. And I think he's, as you mentioned, with the on-base percentage, I think he is a good on-base percentage away from being an elite player.
Yep.
I think he's a very good player right now, but he's like a good on-base percentage away from being an elite player. But yeah, that I think he's going to be projected in a solid manner. He's just overall very good, one of the best defenders out there. I think he improved his fly ball rate as well. So just good signs pointing there. So yeah, he's my number 4. Where do who do you have number 3?
Number 3, this is where I put Julio Rodriguez, who is going into his age 23 season and has already, been a dominant force in the league for 2 years now already, which weirdly enough, it just feels like more. It feels like he's already so established in his role with the Mariners, but it's only been 2 years. Last season, he took some steps back and some steps forward. He dipped a little bit in offensive production. His weighted runs created plus went down by 20 points, but he also had about 150 more plate appearances because he played well, first of all, 714 plate appearances in 155 games is pretty impressive. Not that he really controls it, but or has that much control of it, but he did see a lot more opportunities. He did a lot better with defense. He did a lot better with base running by his Fangraphs metrics in 2023 compared to 22. In terms of his batted ball metrics, it's great. I mean, it's exactly what you'd expect it to be out of Julio Rodriguez. He hits the ball hard. He hits it in the air. Um, he does everyththing extraordinarily well. He's excellent at defense and base running. He does strike out quite a bit, but I think it's pretty forgivable because everything else he just completely excels in. I wouldn't be surprised if he outperforms some of the other people on this list in 2023 or 2024 that I have above him. Um, but yeah, I mean, you have to, he's a lock for top three, and he's a lock for top 20 to 15 player in the game, maybe even top 10, like I mentioned with Corbin Carroll. He is the complete package, and it feels like he's only getting better.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, Julio Rodriguez is an elite, definitely an elite center fielder. My number three, this is probably might confuse some people, but I'm going with Michael Harris the second. A lot of it is sort of based on what he did from June on and sort of underlying numbers just going in the right direction. And I'll explain sort of why I have him above Luis Robert. Um, with Michael Harris, he's coming off a year in which he had a 293 average, 808 OPS, 114 OPS plus, 7 outs above average, +3 arm value, 2 defensive runs saved, 20 stolen bases, a 3.9 BSR, and 72% extra base taken rate. He's also heading into his age 23 season. And this is why I have him ranked higher than I think a lot of people would have him ranked at this position is despite a drop in offensive production last year, almost all of his underlying numbers got better or stayed the same in 2023. His barrel rate was within 0.1% of 2022. He had an increase in average exit velocity, hard hit rate, sweet spot rate, line drive rate, pull rate, and a decrease in strikeout rate, chase rate, whiff rate, and ground ball rate, and also an increase in all expected numbers. So I'm pretty optimistic about what he's going to bring to the table in 2024. Along with that, in his final 100 games, he hit 335 with a 912 OPS, and he also had a higher OPS and FWAR than Luis Robert in that particular span. And even excluding that and just going based off of the entire 2023 season, Michael Harris had a higher expected WOBA than Luis Robert, while I believe also being around a similar defender and a better base runner. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic about Michael Harris. I think that first 2 months of the year from him last year were pretty much an anomaly and pretty much set back his entire or set back his numbers for the entire 2023 season. And I think just overall next year we're going to see that, that rookie of the year Michael Harris that we saw in 2022. What do you have for your number two pick?
Number two is Mike Trout. You have him at number five, and he had his worst. He had his worst season probably in his career, out excluding 2011 in 2023. When you consider what he did on the field, he only had a 134 weighted runs created plus. With that being said, he actually had his best defensive season on Fangraphs and on Baseball Savant since 2018. People have been kind of questioning his defense for a while. And as far as I'm concerned, he's still going. Defensively at age 32, going into 33 next year. He had 96th percentile sprint speed, 84th percentile outs above average with 4 outs above average last year. And, I feel like people worry about, his health, but also the fact that he's not getting any younger and he's going to start declining with age. And I feel like if he hasn't shown that clear decline in defense and base running yet, there's no reason to believe we're going to see it in offense yet. I know that we did kind of see it last year, but, it could be, I don't see any reason to believe he can't get back up to where he was beforehand going forward. He got unlucky in terms of expected batting average. He had a 12-point difference. Expected slugging, he had a 33-point difference. Still hit the ball very hard, still hit it in the air at a tremendous rate. Had 95th percentile hard hit rate and barrel rate. Chased at a great rate, 19.7%, which led to an 88% walk rate. His strikeouts have certainly gotten to be concerning compared to where they were before, but I still think that prime Mark Trout is somewhere in there. Maybe he won't have his 2019 again, maybe he won't have his MVP seasons again, but I still think top 5 player in the league, Mike Trout is in there. And yeah, we haven't seen it over a full season since 2019, maybe even 2018, but a lot of signs are still pointing to the fact that he's still there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I still think he is, when he's on the field, like a
Hmm.
top 10 hitter in the game. He's one of the best hitters in baseball for sure. And like even just if you look at longer samples, like even just including his 2022 season, uh past 2 years, a 941 OPS, 157 OPS plus. Like he is elite at
Yeah.
the plate while being pretty much either neutral or positive at both base running and defense. So yeah, on a game per game basis, I think I would have him above Julio Rodriguez, and I would have him number two as well. It's just yeah, I'm
Yeah.
it's a matter of
We
delivering.
are considering projected health very differently here. Like I mentioned, I had Byron Buxton on my list. So,
Yeah,
and then no, that's an even more extreme example with struggles staying on the field compared to Mike Trout.
exactly.
Unfortunately,
Ex-
yeah. But yeah, I
exactly.
mean, game per game basis, I still put Mike Trout number two, and I
Yes.
think and like you mentioned, you would as well.
Right. So now on to my actual number two, which is Julio Rodriguez. He is, he shows he's great in all three phases of the game. Just coming off a year in which he hit 275 with an 818 OPS, 128 OPS plus, 12 outs above average, -2 arm value, but 12 outs above average nonetheless. -5 defensive runs saved, which is weird. But 37 stolen bases, a 7.0 BSR, and 57% extra base taken rate. And he's heading into his age 23 season. I mean, yeah, he's a real great player in all aspects of the game. He had 90th percentile or higher rankings in batting run value, base running run value, and fielding run value. And I think with better strikeout and walk numbers, he could be a top 5 player in the game given all of his tools. He's not quite there yet, but he is still just an amazing player. And yeah, there's a reason why he gets so much hype. He's one of the best players out there. So now on to number one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be no surprises here. My number one center fielder in baseball going into 2024 is Aaron Judge. He had another tremendous year last year, albeit one where he unfortunately didn't stay on the field for 60-ish games, and it really sucks for the general baseball world that he wasn't on the field because he still found a way to put up 37 home runs in just 458 plate appearances and 5.3 FWAR. Uh, he had like an MVP caliber season in just 106 games last year. And not only that, but that 174 weighted runs created plus that he had, kind of a miracle that it was that low. He had the unluckiest difference in baseball in slugging minus X slugging, a 99-point difference. He only slugged 613. It should have been 712. Or, they was 712 in the expected numbers. He had the unluckiest difference in WOBA minus X WOBA. His WOBA was 420. His expected WOBA was 461, a 41-point difference. He's actually like, the baseball world actually got a lighter side of Aaron Judge with his 1019 OPS because he actually was very unlucky in many metrics. So, um, I mean, he's still, he had in many ways had just as good of a season as his 2022, where he famously hit 62 home runs. And there's no reason to believe that he can't do it again in 2023, in 2024, excuse me.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Aaron Judge is also my number one, consensus number one. And when we get to top 100 players of 2023 overall, he could potentially be number one on that as well. Just recapping his 2023 he hit 267 with a 1019 OPS, 175 OPS plus. He had one out above average in center field, -1 defensive run saved in center field, 3 stolen bases, a 1.0 BSR, and now he is heading into his age 32 season. Yeah, he's the best hitter in baseball while being a positive contributor on defense and the bases. He was 100th percentile in 6 of the 10 Baseball Savant dashboard hitting stats, which is
Yep.
absolutely absurd. And out of 2,225 seasons in the StatCast era with 200 plus batted balls, Judge's average exit velocity, hard hit rate, and expected slugging from 2023 were all the highest out of over 2,000. That's how great he was last year. I mean, his average exit velocity was 97.6 miles per hour, which
Yeah.
is just it's crazy to do. That's crazy to
Yeah.
do
It's
in a
it is
week.
such a disservice that he had that injury with the Dodger Stadium right field wall. It wasn't even like, it was some lingering thing that came back. It was a freak play where he hurt his toe.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Um, the stuff with the expected stats is weird. I think part of it has to do with just I think with hitters of Judge's caliber, the outfield just plays like very deep in general. So some of the
Hmm.
balls that he hits to the warning track that would be doubles for a lot of players are just caught because they're positioned so well to prevent extra base hits from happening with Aaron Judge. So I think that just naturally happens. But still, like, he's the best hitter in the game. I think 2023 sort of established that, 2022 established that, and then 2023 made it
Confirmed
so
it.
that it was sort of unquestionable. So yeah, he's the best center fielder in the game for sure.
Yeah, I mean the way that Aaron Judge gets so much out of himself is that he hits fly balls at an outrageous rate. His fly ball rate was 10.4% above his ground ball rate, which is absurd in 2023. He also had more fly balls than ground balls in 2022. He had almost the same number of ground balls and fly balls in 2017, which was his first, breakout season where he had 52 home runs as a rookie. Um yeah, I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. He's the best center fielder and the best hitter in the game right now.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So to go over the lists here, my 1 through 10 is Judge, J Rod, Michael Harris II, Luis Robert, Mike Trout, TJ Friedel, James Outman, Cody Bellinger, Cedric Mullins, and Jack Swinski. What is your 1 through 10?
Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, Julio Rodriguez, Luis Robert Jr., Michael Harris II, Cody Bellinger, Jung Hoo Lee, Byron Buxton, James Outman, Jackson Chourio.
Yeah, so I guess our biggest discrepancies is I did not have like Jung Hoo Lee on the list. I think part of it for me is just like not knowing what he's gonna bring to the
Yeah.
table. Whereas
No,
like,
I can't fault you for not having most of the guys. Like, I can't fault you for not having Jung Hoo Lee. Can't fault you for not having Byron Buxton and also Jackson Chourio.
yeah, and I can't really fault you for not having TJ Friedel because he's such a weird guy.
Yeah. I
TJ
mean,
Friedel,
he goes kind of deep into the ARR lore of his expected numbers and actual numbers.
exactly,
The
exactly.
the the only guy that like we had like a Western standoff for using him for how about that's.
Yes, it was an unspoken agreement not to use him.
Yeah.
Um, and then with Cedric Mullins and Jack Sawinski, they're numbered 9 and 10 on my list for a reason. Like they're not,
Hmm.
I don't
So
expect them to be, crazy, crazy center fielders out there.
so I did actually look at Jack Sawinski. The reason I left him off was because of his lefty righty splits. He had a 609 OPS against lefties last year.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. And yeah, with Cedric Mullins, I'm just relying on a bounce back to his pre-injury numbers, which
Yeah, and
can
that's fine.
easily that can easily go in the wrong direction for sure.
Hmm.
Because it's projected health also, which is a very, very weird thing. Okay. So yeah, that is it for the first of or the first and second of 10 positional breakdowns.